That was legendary Led Zeppelin with Good Times, Bad Times. And the reason we say that and we got that is because it's off of the Perfection Saga playlist, which you guys can find on Spotify. We're definitely going to go ahead and drop that link for you guys so you guys can go ahead and follow that. And the curator of that playlist is Beth Pellino-Dudzic. I probably messed that up.
No, you did very well.
Is an American author known for her romance series, The Perfection Saga, which delves into the vibrant world of the 1970s and 80s rock music scene. She was born in Bronx, New York City. We're both from the BX. Throw your X's up. She spent most of her life in Westchester County, earned a bachelor's in business administrations, and worked at IBM. She has three adult daughters and a granddaughter, which I'm sure that's still recent, right? Because, you know.
Um, yeah, she's about 15 months now.
Okay, congratulations. Still walking around. Um, she currently resides in Pike Road, Alabama, with her husband and her Truffle, her dachshund Truffle.
Y- She's a miniature dachshund, but she's not so miniature because she's really overweight. So,
Oh, is that the one you was like, go eat your breakfast?
yes,
Welcome to QSJ Radio, Beth. How you doing?
thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure to be on.
So we are here to talk about, whatever. But one of these things about on authors is sometimes it's imagination, sometimes it's inspiration, and so the Perfection Saga. Why did you choose the rock music scene as basically the backdrop?
Okay, so this story has been in my head for 20 years. I just need to get that out there. Um, so the Perfection Saga starts in a world that I was in at that time, and um, I did not sing. Everybody asks me that. It was something that I wanted to do, but since I was so young, um, didn't think that I had the I guess just the will to do it because once you let self-doubt get in there, it kind of cripples you. So I would say that happened to me. But all my friends were musicians, and I did have a boyfriend who played in another in a band. But the reason I got involved in all this, I was dating someone and I was still in high school, and
We don't talk about
and
those days, do we?
yeah, well, no, they were good. They were good times. I wish I would have enjoyed it in retrospect a little bit more, and I kind of imparted that wisdom on my daughters to like not try to grow up so fast. Enjoy the moment that you're in because I did not. Um, so I started dating this guy who allowed me to use his name in my books. Um, and he was a roadie for the way the New York club scene worked is there were a lot of clubs, bars, and one guy had really you needed to go through him to play in these clubs, and
Mm.
this person was a roadie for the number one band on that circuit. And so I immediately was thrown into like these guys were the best. And then I made friends with a couple of guys in the band, and they were good friends, and they um, they knew my children, so that's how long the friendship went.
Wow. Okay.
And then you meet other bands and you get friendly with them, or it's like, oh no, the enemy. um and yeah, and because I was around them, that's how I met the then boyfriend who was in the other band, and it was It was a young, serious relationship. So when you have a boyfriend in a band, you're known as, and it's kind of like today it would never be acceptable, but you were so and so's girlfriend, and everybody knew you as that person. Um, so I used to go to the gigs every night they played, and it was it was fun. It was for me, coming home at like 3 or 4 in the morning and then having to go to school. It was like, oh God, okay. Um, but there were substances that helped me stay up for that. Uh, and but it is a grind. Um, you're there before everybody comes in the bar. The roadies are setting up the equipment and the sound checks, and you know, you're there till the end because basically the bar owner had to pay you.
Yeah.
Um, and so you were there for a while. So it was an all night thing. And so your body clock changes. You sleep into like 1 or 2. And for me, there were times when that was difficult. And then by 6 o'clock, you're driving to the next gig. And so it's this repetitive thing. But it also was a very, it was a great time. And at that time, the club scene was so big. I mean, it was advertised on the rock
Yeah.
stations and, see so and so at this club. And it was fun. And because I was young, it made it even more so fun. And and those guys, depending on what band it was, it was a happening. So I came from that, and I the relationship broke up, and I started dating this other guy who was a drummer in another band. And but at that time, I also had my degree, and it was like, okay, I said to my parents, originally, I said I wanted to go to school for acting. Again, like that creative force that you have. It's like, okay, so I didn't sing. And so I said to my parents, well, I'm going to go to school for acting. And they said, no, no, you're not. Um,
Of
you're not
course.
doing
Of
that.
course.
So I did what people say is I took the straight road, and I quote unquote sold out, right? Because, how could you do that? You're selling out. But you also have to earn a living, even if I was living with my parents, whatever. Um, and I wanted to use my degree, and I got a great job. Um, and it wasn't at IBM at that time.
Oh, okay.
It was, I worked for, back in the day, the accounting firms. It was called the Big Eight. And I for an accounting firm, which as a rock and roll chick, you would think, oh, that's like got to be really boring.
Yeah, yeah.
But it actually wasn't, because you met a, I met a great group of guys and chicks, and we had great times. I mean, we'd go to an Irish bar till like 2 o'clock in the morning, and go home. So it was kind of like the same thing but different. Um, so great job, and I have to be careful with this because um, there was somebody at my job, and he was constantly asking me out, and I was like, no, like
Oh man. One of
we are
those.
so different. There's no way, no.
Yeah.
Um, and when you know band friends or band boyfriends would show up at my office, everybody would be like, "Oh, that's for Beth. That he's here for Beth." There's no way around that. Um, And I don't know how it happened actually, Dave, but that person who was asking me out, like for 5 years in a row, I made a bet between a Dallas Cowboy and a New York Giant game, and the Giants weren't good back then.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I lost the bet, and I said, "Okay, I'll buy you lunch." And I don't know how it flipped on me. It did, and I started dating this super straight person, and he took a job in Hawaii, and I did. And this is from the music scene. Had a abusive boyfriend, and when you're young, and I kept saying, I got to get out. I got to get out. Um, and the one part of the book, there's a lot of me in the books. Um, it is fiction, but there are things in the books that really did happen. And one of the things is that the female lead, her father is a big wise guy,
Oh,
and
okay.
she lives in a very nice estate in Long Island. And I'm not from Long Island, even though most of my family moved there. Um, but my father was one of those guys. So
Yeah, being from Westchester, you know.
I'm
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Westchester.
You got to get one
Um,
of those. They don't understand that part, you know.
yeah, I mean, there was always the thing like, I'm from Westchester, and it's like, well, you're from, and we don't say, I say Long Island, which is one word, um, but most of us, in New York, we say, oh, you're going to the island,
Yeah,
which means you're going out to Long Island.
yeah,
Just like when we say, oh, we're going to the city, that means Manhattan.
yeah,
And,
yeah. That doesn't
you
mean
never, you
that doesn't
never
mean.
lose that
Yeah,
memory.
exactly, exactly.
Um, so he moved to Hawaii, and I was like, okay, whatever. And he came back like every month, and the abusive boyfriend was stalking me, and it was after my father literally gave him a beat down with a couple of associates.
Whew,
Um,
whew.
so he was stalking me, and I decided he asked me to move to Hawaii, and I said, okay, I'll just to get away.
Yeah,
And I thought, okay, I'm going to be back in a year. They held my job for me for a year. And my father gave me a one-way ticket and said, use it whenever you're ready to come back home. And I got a phone call right before I was going to come back home. I don't know how he got my number in Hawaii. And the next thing I knew, I got married and I lived in Hawaii for a really long time. My daughters were all born there. So I know a lot about the Hawaiian culture, and you try to assimilate, but I was never I I I kind of played the game because Hawaii has its own way. Like
yeah,
New Yorkers, we have our own way. Hawaii has their own thing. And, when kids would go to school, and I was very involved, and um, my ex husband was a very well known, made a lot of money. So I had a beautiful life, as people would say, but I hated everything about it. I did. And the only good thing is that I taught my children about good music. So early on, I was playing Beatles, Stones, Van Halen, the Police, you name it. I was playing Talking Heads, and they had that appreciation for that music, and they were little kids, and to this day, they still appreciate that music. And sometimes when they play their playlist and a song comes on, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I really got in there. And so their music appreciation is, I think, something I gave them. And I decided I needed to move back to New York. I wanted my children to have that New York kind of attitude,
Yeah,
because
the
it is an
toughness.
attitude,
It is a
right?
yeah, it's a toughness. I believe that.
Um, and living in Hawaii, you're very isolated. I mean, and that's what always got to me is, I was living in this island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and it was 5.5 hours to get to California. So I felt the wall started closing in. I just said,
Kind of
I need to go
feeling,
back. I
kind of
need to
feeling
go back.
trapped or something like that.
It definitely feeling trapped. One of the last times my parents, of course, did the typical New York migration. They moved to Florida. That's
Let's get serious. I'm down
yeah,
south my way, but I didn't go all the way. I didn't
yeah,
go.
that's the typical New York migration, right? Go to Florida. Um, but they lived in Orlando, so my children went to Disney World, Universal. I mean,
Yeah, I did a
they
lot. Yeah, basically.
a lot. Um, so when I would go back and I remember the last time my father said to me, you don't have to go back. And I said, no, I do, because I have to do things legally and the right way.
Mm.
Otherwise, I could be sued for kidnapping my kids. Um, so I did, after a year and a half, finally got the go ahead to go back to New York. And then I became a single mother. But I knew I had instilled a lot of things because, they were a little bit older. I had a tween, and my youngest was about 8. And so I felt I did a good job in raising them. And then I became a single mother, and I did get very good child support, but I did.
You
It
had to
was
throw that one in there, right, Beth? You had to throw.
yeah. I didn't get alimony. I got a lump sum payment, and I said, "This is all I get for enduring this." Wow.
Wow.
But I did get good child support, and I bought my first home, by myself, and I felt my daughters were used to a certain way of living, so I said, "No, I got to go to work." And that's when I got the job at IBM, which was a great job. I really had a great job there. But the whole time, I'm still like, there was a void and there was a creativity. And when I lived in Hawaii, it came out that I gave the best parties, and people would wait for the invitation to whether it was a Christmas party or this party. And it was like, well, if your kid is not talking to my kid, guess what? You're not coming. And
Wow.
people would ask me, like, oh, my invitation didn't come in the mail. And it's like, really? I don't know what happened.
Oh
So,
my God.
yeah.
Picking and choosing. Okay. That's safe. That's
Yeah.
safe. I believe.
And so your creativity comes out in that. There used to be these black tie fundraiser events, and I would do those. So the creativity is there, and so what do you have to find an outlet, and that's what I did. And I started having this story running through my head, and it was always when I was cleaning my house. And
That's when the playlist comes in. It has to be.
well, the playlist does have a meaning,
Yeah, I
but
definitely understand that. Well,
this,
so while you was cleaning the house, did you have the music playing?
no,
Oh,
what
okay.
happened was the story was running through my head,
Wow. Okay.
and it would come up in these like little black and white clips, and it was just really the storyline and the main characters. And for years I said, and I do have 3 other stories that would pop into my head at the same time, but the rock and roll one was the one that was always coming back. And about it's longer than a year and a half ago, but we'll say a year and a half ago. I was, and the story's still playing in my head. And I was cleaning my house, and all of a sudden the story started coming up in color. And not only did it come up in color, I started having the names of the characters, places that they were going to.
Ooh.
And I was like, okay. And I remember saying, there's a song that Pop Evil does that's called Survivor. And I just randomly threw it out there and I said, you know, if I write this book, I'm going to have this song as my opening to my books, which I didn't do, but I said, why did I say I was going to write these books? And cleaning the house, the story, I turned on the shower and the story literally flooded through me. And I said, oh, I need to get out of the shower. I need to get my laptop and I need to start writing this. And I did. And I haven't stopped writing. Um, the story just came to me and it's still coming to me because I thought I wrote one book. And I think the series might be 8 books. It's
Whew.
definitely going to be 7.
That's intense.
um, and I know exactly where and that's the thing. I know exactly where I'm going, and I bounce, and these ideas because when my father passed and I moved to Alabama, my mother said I'm moving there because I'm the only daughter. I have 3 brothers, or I had 3 brothers. One of my brothers passed. Um, and so mom is here with me in Alabama, not in my house. So I take her out because she doesn't drive, food shopping, whatever. And I said, "Oh, okay, so this is what's going to happen in the next book." And sometimes she'll say, "Oh, why are you doing that? That's so sad." And I said, it is a love story, but it's a story based in the rock and roll world. So everything can't be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with the books is that it kind of takes you a little bit on a roller coaster ride, but I'm true to the music world. It has to be something that's real. So I'm going to take you from that New York club scene and what it takes and what it did take back then to make it, which was an A&R guy from a record label coming to see you at a bar and thinking, okay, they're good. And back in the day, there were a lot of bands that were great cover bands, but you needed to have your own material for a record company to be
Yeah,
interested.
to break out,
Yeah.
basically. Big shout
So
out to everybody listening in. If you're just tuning in right now, we do have Beth here talking, and Beth is going in from start to finish. We just went from high school, passing college, going cross country to the Hawaiian state, chilling over there, coming right back and saying, one day I took a shower and it all came out. But it's all in between. What I'm going to do right now is introduce, for those who don't know, there is a song on the playlist, number 30. It is Pop Evil Survival. And we're going to go ahead and take a break real quick and come right back because we are getting into that. We're getting right into the books, guys. If you guys don't know, the Perfection Saga, available now all over the place. We're gonna go into these characters. It's gonna be crazy. Just stay in tune.
I didn't realize I hit Survivor on it. It's a good song.
It is. It is.
I mean, I try to mix the old and somewhat new.
ooh, I couldn't understand why this did it.
right? I don't know why I picked that song, but it resonated.
Well, it's one of those kind of simple, hyped up songs, I believe. Because you're there, you know the emotion, and then all of a sudden comes, especially,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. It's and they have that's just one song. I think I'm not sure if I yeah, Torn to Pieces is another great song that they do. And it has a specific meaning when I tell you about how I create the playlists for each book.
so
And
for those who are just tuning in, we just we was just chatting it, Pop Evil Survivor, excuse me, and no, but believe it or not, guys, these are legitimate rock songs. They're not unsigned. These people have been successful for a little bit, and it a lot of these songs. If you guys didn't know, this is a 10 hour. This is a 10 hour playlist. Okay, so you're not gonna have just one emotion going through. So if you're not what's it called, emotionally intelligent, you probably don't want to go through that. But if you do, you'll understand more of the Perfection Saga playlist. um, the music scene as a young woman, and in those times, um, those times were the times that our parents were scared of, right? There, so nowadays there's too many cameras around. There's too many things going on. People are gonna find out. The security got to be tight and all that. But these are the days where, um, I was gonna ask one of these personal questions,
go
and
ahead.
and say, would you have considered yourself what people called a groupie, or were
No, no.
okay?
I emphatically no. Um,
So, but we did get a little bit of background, so that's why I didn't have to ask
yeah,
it anymore. Was there was relationships involved? So you saw things. You were invited to so many things, the behind the scenes that a lot of fans don't see. They don't see the putting together of a show, and things like that. And of course, the show is over, everybody's tired, they're trying to get out of there kind of feeling. Unless you're an artist yourself, a lot of my artists, a lot of my audience are musicians, and but I was gonna ask earlier too,
yeah.
like, did
And I'm glad you asked that question because in my books, um, the female character hates groupies. And I watched it um, because, as I said, these guys were all my friends. And the guy who introduced me to this whole scene, um, I we decided it was better that we be best friends, which we were. And if it was a big gig, there and I put this in the book. There was, and you might know this. Glen Island Casino was very big in the '40s, like
yeah.
Dorsey and all those big bands played there. But back in the '70s and '80s, Glen Island Casino on Tuesday night in the summer was the hottest place to be. There were three bands that played there, and so it was crowded. It was you could go see the band downstairs, who was the lesser kind of band, and then there would be the two powerhouse. And I would go, and my name was always left at the door. So I just kind of waltzed in. And um, so, yes, there was always people who would try to pick me up. And this ex-boyfriend who became my best friend, he would always, he would step in and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then it was like, okay, I got rid of that guy.
Yeah.
Um, but I did see the groupies, and I was like, oh my God, don't they have any self-respect? Um, the way that they would, and there was always like one or two guys in the band that, were the draw for the groupies. And, I sat back as a friend, or a girlfriend, and I watched it. And it was for me like, ugh, what's wrong with you? Have a little respect for
Okay.
yourself, because they just wanted to say that they were a band. And some guys, and I saw this, um, even if they had a girlfriend, they would have a girl from each bar. There was that girl.
So there was a connect. There was somebody from somebody. So they always had somebody. Oh man.
Yeah, even if they actually had
Had
someone.
had somebody waiting for them.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
and this was my dilemma, when I my boyfriend's band, everybody had a girlfriend, and we were all best friends. And we would go to the clubs, and we would be sitting at a table, and it could be packed. And, they would come and give us drinks, whatever. And yes, we were always hit on. And then we'd just say, we're with the band, which was the phrase that you always use. We're with the band. And then they would just, walk away. Or sometimes they would get an attitude and say, "Oh, you're too good. You're with the band." And then it's like, I guess I had the loudest mouth and said, "Get the blank out
Yeah,
of
yeah,
here."
yeah. Oh, you can
Um,
you can swear on
and
here.
there and the roadies were, available to kind of step in if they had to. At one club, there was a bunch of girls, groupies, and they wanted to fight us. And I was like,
What?
I said, okay, let's take it out in the parking lot. And so I used to go every night.
Ain't no
And
way. Ain't no way, Beth. You gonna tell me you was out here throwing hands? This?
well, so I said, okay, let's take it out in the parking lot. And the band is playing, and they're watching this, play out in front of them. And I was like, yeah, come on. And there were two friends that they were our friends. So they weren't groupies. They were just friends of the band too. And they were tough girls from Long Island. And they were like, yeah, no, come on, let's go. Let's go in the parking lot. And we walked out, and we could see the look on the guys' faces. We're like, what the hell is going on here? And once we got to the parking lot, it was like, come on, let's go. You want it? And they couldn't, I guess our New York, they were from, it was a club in New Jersey. So,
Oh man, the class of the attitudes.
yeah,
Bro.
but they backed off. They backed off.
Okay.
And um, so I did see that groupie mentality. And I used to tell the guys in the band, and for the most part, they were loyal to their girlfriend. And if I saw something, I would just say to said member of the band, I would say, look, if you're going to do something that I don't want to see, I said, because I will tell your girlfriend, your fiance, or whatever, um, what you're doing. So can you please do it where I don't see you,
Yeah.
so I don't know it's happening?
Yeah. Because
And
I believe, and this is me assuming, because everybody was around each other or whatever all the time, that would probably bring some insecurities to you on what these guys were doing. I mean, I'm sure you knew it
I
was happening, but it was or not happening. I don't know. I don't even know how you would feel every day. Like,
Well, I felt bad. And that's why I said to them, like individually, if I saw somebody who is like hanging around or, gravitating, like because the band has sets, right? So you have your first set, you hang out, the club music, blah blah blah, and then you could see, the girls positioning themselves, and I just because I went every night, and
hold up. There was a groupie detective. Like, you could tell that seriously?
oh
How?
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
What?
when you're around it, you see it, and you could say, okay, this girl is heading for so and
Yeah.
so.
How do I get back there? Wow. Wow.
And I just was very honest, and I knew I couldn't say anything because this was the bad place that I was in. Is these women were my friends. I mean, and I'm still friends with some of them,
Oh
and that's
yeah.
the best. I'm still friends with some of them.
That has to be a lot of giggles. Has to be a lot.
Um, yeah, one of them is married to the person that she was with, and I didn't worry about him, but and that's why I said, I don't want to see it because I will feel I have to say something. But if you say something, then you upset the band, right? Then there's a clash. There's you create havoc. So you really can't say anything because that creates, a
Yeah.
lot of so you have to keep your mouth shut. You don't, so you're in a bad position. So that's why I just said do it. If you're gonna do something that I'm not gonna like, just do it away from me.
Yeah.
Just I don't want to see
If
it.
you guys are just tuning in, we're talking to Beth and we're talking, a little bit of the history. I had to sneak in a little question here and there because, it was a really crazy time. Almost everybody wanted to be in the band, involved with the band, so I had to get that one out. Let's go fast forward a little bit because the Perfection Saga right now, if you guys haven't seen the link, it's available on Amazon right now. So go ahead and click that link. Um, in the second book,
Hmm.
it's Playing Hard. Gina Ricci, Trevor McNaughton. Uh,
Right.
how? What do you think makes their relationship so compelling?
Well, in book one, and I've actually had a reviewer say that she was an unlikable character because she's very and I knew that going in, and um, I have a team that we all work together, like an editor, a publishing consultant, because I'm self-published.
Okay,
So
okay. Congrats on that.
yeah, it's a lot of money.
It's
Just
a lot
telling
of it's a
people.
lot of bread. It's a
Yeah,
lot of
it
bread.
is. I actually sent because books 3, 4, and 5 and 6 is almost done. Um, so I gave it to my publishing consultant and I said, "Come on, we got to roll out book 3." So the compelling love story is, you know, Gina starts this band with her cousin, and they're trying like hell to just get a good gig in a good bar kind of deal. And she goes to Glen Island Casino, and her cousin rides her, and he says, all these guys, you're a hot commodity, you're sexy, you're this, and you're not interested. And she said, well, I haven't found the person. And she said, I'm not going to have bad sex. And I think we've all been in a position where it was sort of like, oh God, I don't know why I did this.
Yeah,
And
yeah. A few times.
so she says, no, I'm not going to do it. Um, and the one thing I wanted to bring up when we're talking about this, um, drugs were a big part of that scene too, and we can't dance around it because it was real. And I will say on that, I don't think I ever bought anything because it was always given to me, and so everybody was partaking in various things. Um, so that was part of the scene. So the compelling thing is, she goes to Glen Island Casino, and what they're really trying to do is meet, the guy who booked all the talent, and they wanted to play there. And so her friends, so this is kind of where, you know, um, reality and fiction kind of meld. She's friends with a band, and she's very tight friends with them. And they are the biggest band on the circuit. So she goes to see them, and the second band on the stage comes out, and she sees this guy, and she automatically is like, ah, he's the guy. He
Wow.
he's and it was for her, it was instantaneous. And they literally collide, and he becomes extremely, smitten with her. And they she takes him back to her place
Oh.
that first night. And they it was like love at first sight. They fall in love. And as the story goes on, and in book two, playing high, um, you start to see why they are. I don't want to say it's not a dysfunctional. There's another word for it. Codependent.
Compl-
Um,
yeah.
they're not codependent, but they are so deeply in love with each other. And there's a reason why he is deeply in love with her, and she has her reason. Um, and like I said, there's a bit of me, and so she feels, even though everybody says, you know, she's sexy, she doesn't want to sing chick songs. She said, I want to sing the songs that guys sing. I don't want to. Don't give me any of that girl stuff. I want to sing Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin. I want to sing the songs that a guy sings.
Yeah.
Um, and she thinks she's very average. And I went through that stage myself. I mean, so that I giving you a part of me in the book where she thinks, there's so many other prettier women out there, and she's just average, and she can sing. That's her thing. And when I reconnected, and Facebook, has done that for many of us, where you reconnect with people
Yeah.
for me from that time, from other times. And I said, look, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't think I was pretty enough, and all the all these guys said to me, you actually didn't realize how hot you were. And I said, was I?
Well,
Because I said,
let's
I did
go.
not feel that way. And they're like, oh my God, yes, you were. And I said, damn, if I would have known that, I would have made different choices in my life. I would have elevated my dating game. Um, so, you find out all these years later. So I injected that into the book. So their
Mm.
love story is compelling, and their rise in the music scene. So they become a band. They're two bands that mix. So they are in a band together, and that's what sells them to that's what opens up their world, because their band is different. They sing lead vocals together, and sometimes she'll sing just by herself, but mostly they sing together. He's a lead guitarist, her cousin is a lead guitarist. So it's like the three of them are constantly playing off each other, and it works. It
It really
works.
does. It really does. Big shout out to
And
everybody listening. If you're just tuning in with us, we have Beth here. I didn't want to mess Beth's name up, so I'm just first handing it. But it's Pellino
yes,
Dudzic.
that's it.
Pellino-Dudzic. And if you guys didn't know, better known as an author for her romance series, The Perfection Saga, which, as if you've been hearing in the background, there is 6 to 7, 8 books coming around. I want to take a little break real quick. And if you guys are wondering where this music is coming from, we are going to get into the meaning behind this playlist here after. I'm going to go random, but because of this question that I asked, I think that Addicted to Love by Robert Palmer will be
Oh,
really
great
cool
song.
right now.
Yeah, great song.
Big shout out to everybody listening. This is Addicted to Love by Robert Palmer. Again, it's on Spotify, Curator. I'll leave a link in our description and on the chat in a second, guys. Addicted to Love, part of the Curator Perfection Saga playlist. I want to get into some of these songs here on the playlist because some of these are, you know, decades apart of emotion, because what someone was probably feeling 10 years ago is not the same now. When somebody misses somebody now, it's because they didn't get a text 2 hours ago. You know,
Right.
like, you know, like it's not the same kind of love. There's a lot of Pearl Jam here, Nickelback. Some of these guys are 90s kind of acts. But then we go back to like The Doors, Led
Yeah.
Zeppelin, and then bring it back a little bit, and there's a lot of Nickelback in here, and then
I did because they're my
there's a
favorite band.
lot of Nickelback in
I
here.
know.
And then we go to a little bit of almost off the rock thing with the Beach Boys. I got a feeling that was a lot of Hawaiian kind of influence there, but I could be wrong. But yeah, there's just a lot of things going on here, and it's 10 hours, people. So if you got time, okay, let's go follow that. The playlist, and the reason I was asking earlier questions about being in the house cleaning and was there music playing, I feel like a lot of these songs were talking for you in these relationships that you were basically showing up to because you were just there. Am I crazy for thinking something like that?
No, I listen to music like right now. I listen to the Perfection Saga playlist every day. I do have other playlists, but those are like wildly mixed with, Ariana Grande, Jonas Brothers, and then throw in like Corn. So I listen to the Perfection Saga for a lot of reasons. At the end of every book, I have a playlist, which Perfection Saga playlist is all the books combined, and I probably will add a few more songs. The playlist relates to that story. And in book one, they are still a cover band. So they are singing Addicted to Love while they're in the club. They're
Wow.
singing Todd Rundgren, I Saw the Light. They're singing, uh, there might be a Bad Company song that they sing. So they're singing those songs. Also, is there are songs that come up that are exactly what you said, a feeling. It's a feeling. So I put that song in. I've also written about 14, 16 songs. I've lost track. So I've written lyrics, and I put it out to like all the bands that are on my playlist. Like, I know you don't need me, but I got some songs, and hey. So, at, yeah, I mean, and I will tie it up with a reason why I'm doing this. So there's a feeling now in book two. Um, they're writing their own material. So in book two, I've written probably 4 or 5 songs that I put in the book. But there is also songs that have meaning, like Paul McCartney's Maybe I'm Amazed. That song is a very important song to the story, along with Stevie Wonder, You Are the Sunshine of My Life. They might seem like what, but they are very important to the story. Um, they have a specific meaning. And then when you say a feeling, there's a part of the song where Nickelback Saving Me makes sense to the story.
Mm.
And until you read it. So at the end of every book, I put a playlist, and I also put the songs that I've written, and I put an asterisk by it because there is no song yet for that particular song. So as I am, and Gina always opens their shows, yeah, and they have their own material, obviously. She opens shows with a cover. That's what she's known for. that she makes a big entrance on stage, and that's why you see the Eurythmics, Would I Lie to You? And she will go out and do a cover, and that's what she's known for. So that's why there's a lot of covers. You're right that there are certain songs that are supposed to um, give you a feeling, emote these emotions that when you hear the song, you can relate it to what's going on in the story. So the playlist gains, songs as we go along, and the total playlist are all the songs that have a meaning or are specifically mentioned in the books. So
Oh, so they're specifically mentioned. So yes, okay. So that's what I was thinking. That while you're reading, the song will play, not specifically lyric by lyric, but at least in your head,
right,
install song here, which is
right.
almost as if you're making a movie.
Well, it's there you go. When I wrote book one, it was really long, and to get in the self-publishing arena, there's a lot of bad self-publishing people who put themselves out there. Um, and there's a site called the Alliance of Self-Publishers. I went on there, and I dealt with two bad companies, and they list them, and it's like they're either green lit, yellow lit, or red lit, and I'll say I dealt with them, but I was never going to go with them,
Yeah.
and they were extremely bad. And so there's only, and there might be more now, there's only like 7 greenlit people, and I contacted everyone. And the woman who I went with, she's my consultant, and she said, okay, create your own publishing company, which I did. And, she directed me, and she still directs me. So she put me in touch with editors. She said, I want you to interview editors. And so it was like she was amassing my team for me, which I had total control of who I went with. And so I have my editor, I have a proofreader that keeps me on track when I go off track, and I say, caller ID, and she's like, Beth, caller ID didn't, because when you kind of go through a period piece, you're like, oh, that's right, they didn't have that then. And I have the woman who does all my covers is a magnificent artist, and she does my website, and I have a marketing person. So I really have an A team.
Wow.
And my editor, when I gave them the manuscript, we had a Zoom meeting, and she goes, I love Gina. And she's like, and I know she's a little abused, so okay. Um, and she said, I get her. And she said, but you have 2 books here. This story is 2 books. So I knew where I needed to cut it to make it, to end book 1, begin book 2. And our idea with every book is that we're going to leave you with a cliffhanger, like, what? I got to read the next book.
Wow.
So she actually did the editing for 2 books. And when she got to the end of book 2, she said, I want you to continue the story. She said, there's so much you can continue. So I said, okay, yeah, fine. So then book 3 and book 4, and now when I write, and in the book world, especially with romance, there's word counts, right? And my
Yeah.
computer tells me how many words I've written. And I can't help it. Like I get to 190,000 words, and
What?
I know that that is 2 books, and even splitting that is a long book because in the romance genre they want you to stay between 90,000, maybe 96,000 words. I can't do that. My books I can't. My books are very dialogue driven, and some of the reviews I got, which I love, because and some were from men, um because I it's dialogue and a lot of it. And yes, I do a little bit of a time jump, but I do go through the changes in the music industry. Um,
That's great. That's great.
people say I felt like I was in the room with them when this was going on, and that's what I want you to feel, that you're in the room.
Nice.
Now,
Nice.
the other thing I need to definitely say is that the books have a high sexual content, which has to happen because it's rock and roll, but it's also the love story of these 2 people, and they are deeply in love. So you have to add this sexual content, which when my daughters read the books, or they kind of read pieces of the book, and I said, hey, I got that. Or they would say, read me a chapter, and I would have to stop. And I said, okay, I can't read anymore. And they're like, why? What, what's going on? Why can't you read it? I said, no, I don't want to read it to you. And they're like, what is it that you're not reading? I said, it's a sex scene. Okay. I'm not reading it to you.
Yeah.
And, so they kind of looked at it like, what what is she writing? Oh my God. Um, yeah. So I don't mince words, but because I know how women, I used to have a book club. Um, and then it got to be too much. I couldn't read the books because I don't let, I can't let a storyline get into my head that's not mine.
Yeah.
So, but women like to read, and they call it smutty, spicy.
Yeah.
Um,
I
they
was
love,
gonna I was gonna try to like categorize it, but the only word I know is it seems derogatory.
um, well, women love it. It's like word porn.
Yeah.
Women love to read.
Oh, I know. I got some friends. I'm like,
Yeah,
bro.
they love to read it. But here's the thing: as a woman, and I've read these, I've read a lot of books. Um, you have to do it in a way that is descriptive, but certain words you don't use, and you have to make it as a love story. So the way that you kind of, I mean, you go into it and then you bring yourself out in a very in a sexy way, but that women will read and won't be offended by.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a trick to do, and I've mastered it, I will say that, because there's a lot of it in the books. And actually my editor in book 2, and I will say, she doesn't, people say, oh, an editor, they're just going to come in and kill your book. They don't. My editor and proofreader keep me grammatically right, keep me time frame wise, um, and they'll make suggestions. It's always my choice, and I'll look at their suggestion and be like, oh yeah, okay, I could, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. But in book 2, she said to me, I put in a sex scene, and she said, no, you need to make that, you need to expand this. You need to make this a longer love scene. And I was like, really? And she goes, yes, yes, make this more. And I was like, okay, I don't know how more I can make it, but all right. So there's the sexual content, which
I
adds
know,
to the
right?
list.
3 minutes. That's all you need, but I guess you can expand it. And then
Yeah, exactly. It was like I said, and there's one thing that I thought about putting in, and I said, no, women don't want to read about that. Women hate that, so I'm not putting it in. I thought it would be sexy until I realized that my readers are going to be mostly women, and so there are certain things that are off limits to us. Um, and I said, yeah, no, I'm not gonna put that in the book.
uh,
Um,
um,
so
okay.
it's and then as the books go on, I start talking about her cousin, and he has a romance, and this person. So then the tentacles start to go out,
Yeah.
where everybody has a story, but they're all connected to those two people.
Wow.
And um, I also wrote, and it's in book one. It's through all the books. Is I wrote what I know. I come from an Italian American family, so I had brothers. I'm the oldest, but in my house, we talked with a lot of profanity, and that's the way we talked in our house. And my father did, and my mother did, and it was just an acceptable way of talking for us. Other people might be like, oh my god.
Yeah.
um, but yes, so I put that in the books because that's the way an Italian American family talks to each other. And some people might be off put by it, but I'm going to give you the real thing. I
Yeah.
mean, and her father's a wise guy. So, through the books, he's always saying, what are we, what the blank is going on here? And, what the, that's realism. And if you don't come from that, maybe you don't understand it. But I think if you're a New Yorker, you understand that.
Yes. I
Um,
definitely do.
yeah, yeah, and it's just, I mean,
For
I'm
those
down.
for those for those who are from the tri-state area, you should at least know that that's gonna come.
Yes,
So,
yeah. I
um,
mean, come on.
yeah. A big shout out to everybody listening. If you guys want more information, not only on the book, on where to reach out to Beth, you can go to perfectionsaga.com. You can go to that site. You can actually check out all her other interviews on there too, for more information. Also, where the book it can be found and things like that. I know the Perfection Saga is coming on to like the eighth book, right?
Probably is.
Are there any other new projects that you believe that you've been trying to work on?
I did when I thought I had one book. Like I said, I have three other stories,
Okay.
and I started writing what I thought was my second book. Um, and it will take place in New York and London. So I'm shifting to go across the pond in that
What?
one. Yeah,
What?
yeah, New York and London. And I know exactly where that book's going, so it's
Oh
sort of
man.
like and those other stories jump out every now and then, and I say, no, 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 go back on the shelf, go back on the shelf. I'm not ready for you. Interestingly enough, and what I think will be my fourth book, because it will be a historical romance, so I have to do a lot of research. And I had to do research with this. You know, did a certain song come out at this
It's your
particular time?
time. Yep.
And you need to be accurate. My proofreader is great, except two things that she I had a schooler on is I put the song Yesterday in there. And she said that song didn't come out. And I said, Cheryl, what the hell are
Bro,
you talking about?
what?
I said,
What?
I said, what song? So I went on Spotify and I put in Yesterday, and there are other songs. And I said, Cheryl, this is the Beatles. The song was written in
Yeah. Yeah,
1966. Come on,
it's throwback.
get
It's
with the
out there.
program.
Exactly. You gotta
And
know.
and then in one part, like Trevor talks to her cousin, and he says, "Hey man, I heard you have a great axe collection." And he goes, "Yeah, man, you know." And I talked the way guys talked back then. Yeah, you know, like check it out. So she wrote me a note. She said, "I tried to find out." She goes, "Why don't you just say guitar collection?" Because she couldn't find the word axe. She didn't understand it. And I said, Cheryl, guys back then would not have said, "Oh, let me see your guitar." They would say, "Hey,
Yeah. There's a
you get
special
some."
name for an instrument, but
Right,
it's not the instrument's name.
right.
And
So,
it depends on the genre
right,
that you are it's musical language,
right.
which
So
is understood. Yeah.
I had a schooler. I said, guys back then would never have said, they would have said, "Hey man, let me check out your axe collection." And so she was like, "Oh, okay." So sometimes, you know, if they don't understand the reference, I have to bring them around and say, no, no, that this is the way it is. So I always tell people, and I did do a podcast, and I was on my way to Austin to do a book festival, and I had to stop because I promised this girl, and we did 90 minutes, and it was fine. Um, and I always tell people, if you read my books and you want to know, because I am putting out there, and I need to go wrap up one thing I mentioned to you. Um,
Yeah.
that there are things in the books that are actually me, things that were said to me, things that I said to people, things that I did, and I fictionalize them. But there's a lot of me and Gina, and I will now say Gina and me, because when I read back, because you're always going back and rereading and with editing. So like I'm writing and then I have to edit. So I'm constantly going back and I read my work and I fall into being Gina at that moment. So I'm feeling everything she's feeling. And I tell people, if I'm putting it out there that, you know, it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship with this character. And I said, if there's something that you want to know, because I'm not going to tell you what's real and what's not real, but if you read my books and you want to know, I'll answer that question. So she asked me, there's a scene that happens in book one, and she said, I need to know if you really did that. And I said, okay, what scene is it? And she told me, and I paused and I said, yeah, yeah, I did that. I really did do that. And she was like, oh my God. Oh, wow. So I always say, if you read the books and you want to know if is that fiction, did I, you know, am I just writing the story, or is that something that really happened to me, or did I really do that? And I will answer it, but you got to read the books in order for me to answer that.
Yeah.
So when you said a movie, after my second book, and my editor said continue, she said, you know, somebody, you know, the streaming services need content. And she said, I can see this being, and I said, a limited series,
Mm.
because it can't be a movie because the story is too intricate. So I said, you mean a limited series on like
Whew.
one of the streaming services? I said, that's where because everybody asks you, what's your goal? To me, the ultimate goal is, yes, this would become a limited series on some network. And at that point, I said to her, I said, well, if that happens, I said, we write the screenplay. I said, because I have seen too many books made into movies, limited series, and it's changed. And I said, I own everything. I don't want my story to be changed. And if one of the networks say, well, we need to have a screenwriter of our own. Yeah, okay, fine. You're dealing with two really strong women, and sure, you know, give,
Let's see
throw your
how.
2 cents in, but I don't know if it's going to work. So ultimately, that's my goal. Ultimately, and it could be a varied group of people, but I would love some of my songs to be actually made into a song. So
Wow, yeah.
if you marry the songs to the show, um, if somebody made a show, I think I could get some of those bands that I called out at one point, because then
You
it would
heard-
be then it would be a show, and then it would be like, don't you want to be part of it? I mean, come on.
That's hilarious, and that's pretty dope. That you could
Yeah.
just be like, "Hey guys, still let you know, you're part of my book. You want to write a song for it, though?"
Yeah, I'd say the words are there. I just need you to write the music. And I kind of know the feeling of the song, um, because there are some really sad scenes.
Yeah.
And that's when you'll notice in the playlist there's a bunch of sad songs, and there's a reason for it. Um, and I will say that I am getting my voice back into shape.
Uh-oh.
And I usually do usually I work out 90 minutes every day. Um, so I'll play the playlist, and I know immediately if I'm having a bad day. Because sometimes your voice is there and sometimes it isn't.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to open your voice up. But I will say that I can sing Pearl Jam really good. So I must have Eddie Vedder and I have a voice that's very similar, because Pearl Jam is very easy for me to sing. Um, I will say Bad Company too. I can do Bad Company pretty good. Um, I'm just trying to mentally. Addicted to Love is easy. Um,
So
so
we're
the,
so what we're saying is Gina's coming out in IRL, basically in real life.
yeah, yeah,
So
no, yeah,
Gina's coming
definitely.
out. Gina is gonna have a track, and it's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, and that's the one thing, with my family is I had to scrub my Facebook page, because they all said, Mom, you want to be that celebrity, and I've been told by my team that you're very different from a regular author, because they don't want to be in the public. And I'm like, bring it on. Bring on.
Oh no.
Yeah, bring
Are you
on.
ready for that? Are we ready
I
for that, Beth? Because
I
that
am
is
ready for
that
it.
is kind of crazy out there. The good and the bad and the ugly of the humans out here.
Yeah, I am ready for it, because I'm strong enough. And look, it took all this time for me to say, I'm letting the beast out. I'm letting the creative beast out. And I'm going to take it as far as I can. And the members of my family, with the exclusion of my mother, I would say, she probably would enjoy it. But they said, you want to be that person, and we don't. We don't, So I'm very careful of not necessarily talking about them. They're not, that's my private life.
Yeah, you
And
wanna
I under
you wanna unlink them, but not unlink them. Like you have the support, but
right.
if it hurts them, you know,
I'm not, yeah.
yeah, you're not
Like,
with it. Yeah.
people said to me, "Oh, you should write a memoir of your life," and I said, "I will never write that book." Um, because there would be people in my life that would have to be part of my book, but I don't like them. They're horrible people, so why would I put them in my book? And I don't want to put anything in my memoir that would hurt my daughters, because there was a very rough time, and it would it would affect them. So I would never want to write that.
Yeah.
So I will never write a story about myself. Um, but going back to the book thing, I do, and this is how my mind works. Is I was working out, and sometimes on Spotify you can say shuffle it to songs that are similar to songs on the playlist.
Yeah.
And Electric Light Orchestra song "Evil Woman" came on,
Oh, nice.
and I was listening to it, and it was like ding, and I said, I I gotta, this would be a great story. So from that song, I interpreted it in a very different. I interpreted it in a way, and that's going to be book 3, and that will probably be a series, because it is an intense storyline that I have created in my head. So yeah, the other projects are there. It's just that and I think Perfection Saga, as my plan is to roll out a new book every 4 to 6 months. And now also, when you self-publish, you're paying for everything. So probably to get book 3 out will be another 12K, and that's a low estimate. So for anybody, yes, people can upload their books on Amazon, but if you want to do it the right way, you need to have the right people, and I do, and you want to have a professional project out there.
Yeah.
And the romance genre is so large, and there's so many categories in that, that you need to, if you want to be at the top of your game, you need to have the top thing. So
You
it
know,
does cost money.
this bring me to one of our few last questions here.
Mhm.
Because this is almost new for you, the writing thing. You know,
Yes.
the thing has been in your head for years, and you said, "Nope, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna do it." And there's a lot of questions already answered within this question. And one of those is, um, the good and the bad, the ugly. Dealt with a company, dealt with other companies that were really bad, and things like this. Um, and thank you for Yugi Tony. He's in the chat right now. He's down south somewhere. He says, "I'm adding this series to my reading list." Thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
what advice would you give aspiring artists? Because you're doing this in a way that people would consider it independent, but still relying on someone. Versus, because you're doing everything on your own, and uh, I still feel like a lot of people have to do that anyway, but they just do it in a. I guess I don't know. I don't know what this writing thing is. If I wrote a book right now, it'd be called "F Them Kids." It'd be.
I could have wrote that book too, by the way.
I could have, I would, but in a way, people would probably wouldn't understand where I'm coming from until they read it, obviously. But what advice would you give aspiring authors who want to break into this romance genre? Because you're going right into it, and I just wanted to ask it. What advice would you give? Because I know that the books are out there. There is a series. People are waiting for new books. It's working. But there were times when it wasn't. And so what advice would you give aspiring authors?
Um, well, to write. If you have an idea, and people talk about writer's block. I have not. I'm the exact opposite. I have way too much in my head, and I'm trying to pour it out. And like I said, 190,000 words in one book is like what? No, but try to be, especially in romance. Try to have. They call them tropes. Are you there's so many enemies to friends, or romanticy, or there's all these subcategories. Try to fixate on where you fit, where your story fits. For me, it's spicy, smutty, rock and roll romance. There is a category, but I'm also there in women's contemporary, um, and there's so many parts to it. Write it, but if you're going to self-publish, and here's the thing, people need to know this, that literary agents are very expensive, and they read your book and they probably will tell you, no, it's not going to work. Publishing houses will not look at somebody who's a first-time author unless you've got a very well-known name, so maybe they will take you. But I know that they wouldn't take me. So I had to do the self-publishing. And the thing about it is you're relying on, and my group of people, 3 of those women have worked on other projects together. So it is really the A team, but you have to feel comfortable with them and expect to spend a lot of money. Don't go into it. And I'm spending money I'm just now working on my 3rd book. Marketing. You spend a lot of money on marketing because nobody knows who you are. And you need to put your face out there. And social media, I try to have a big social media presence. I'm on every platform. And my marketing guru makes trailers and videos. And, we are just constantly putting the books in front of people. So even when your books aren't out, you need to spend a lot of money on marketing. And even in marketing, as I was on Facebook, there's a lot of pages, and they're author pages. And what starts to happen is I'm being hit up in Messenger by bogus marketing people who are promising, I can get your book in front of. So you just really need to be vigilant, because there are so many scammers out there that you need to be in your head with your story, but there's the business side of it. And you need to wear 2 hats. I mean,
Yeah.
Otherwise you could be taken for thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Honestly, it's that crazy. And
we deal with this in the music business a lot, especially in your up and coming starts, and a lot of artists know this, but they don't know any other way. So if you are aspiring artist and you're told you can be part of a concert or something like that, and you have to pay to get on stage. But literally the only benefit that you can get out of that is that you have first you got to cross your fingers that there's a lot of audience members over there. So the thing could come back. Bring a team over there, get a lot of context into the audience and stuff like that. Your money's worth is whatever. But in that's like the dark side of the industry. And people know that. A lot of, if you guys haven't really been hearing earlier, as a girlfriend, as a partner to people, and watching all these things go down, there probably was some nights that the bands didn't get all the money they expected. There were probably nights that they didn't get paid at all, and they already performed. And it sucks because you see these things happening. You see the frustration. It happens more than once. It kind of breaks up this motivation for artists to continue doing their thing. And then as we're moving forward into this conversation, you start seeing it in writing. You start seeing in authors go through the same thing. They don't know yet, unless you go through it, what are the right waves to go. I'm so happy that you found a team, a group of people that were able to get the book out there, able to publish this, help people get published, get a cover out there, get the website running, because it's look, mom's down the road and you're trying to go shopping with mom later. I totally understand. You're living a great life right now, have so many stories for us. We really appreciate all the things, but you really guys got to really understand exactly why Beth is out here and talking to us now, because it's not just only about the story. It's not about the book. It's about, this deeper, story. And if you've really been paying attention, there were situations where the relationships were the only things holding her back from real life. And these things are out there now on these books, in these series. Pay attention to these things, because like she said earlier, she's not getting the memoir out. Okay. There's too many do not shares in life, and as you can tell, she will not hold back if that started. So that is something that I appreciate, because a lot of people feel like they gotta tell too much. And if you guys are not following, make sure you guys go follow us. Beth Pellino, I'm messing it up. Dudzic. Don't worry, I'll let you guys know where to follow her on Instagram and things like that, and Facebook. It's been really, really an amazing time talking about the book, talking about the series, talking about this playlist. Listen, you guys got to understand, when somebody shares a playlist, not only is it a soundtrack to their projects and things like that, but it's literally a soundtrack to their life. And you got to understand why that is significant. It is two different things. Everybody got a playlist if you do that kind of thing, which is put a bunch of songs together, pull out the headphones, play it at the gym. But this is 10 hours. So you're talking about 10 hours. A song could be about 5 different times of somebody's life. So if you really want to get involved in what Beth is went through, going through, and of course with the book, definitely want to get into the Perfection Saga playlist, and we're going to do that. Beth, it's been a really, really good chat. I'm going to go ahead and say this is series 1 of our conversation.
Yes, I want to do it again.
Yeah.
Because there's more books coming out. So yeah, I always say I'm always happy to come back on. I love doing this. And we probably once we start getting towards book 3 and 4, we can go into especially book 2 is very deep. We could go into that. I don't want to say anything that will ruin it.
Spoils. So yeah, don't want to spoil it. We got some new readers in here, so we don't want to go too deep.
Don't want to ruin it. But yeah, I'm that girl. I'm that person who wants to see the book successful, wants to see my songs. It's like the beast was held down and now it's out. And so, yeah, I want my songs out there. Do I want to sing some of them? Maybe. I don't know.
Let's go. Gina Ricci.
Yeah, and also, would I love to see it made into some kind of limited series? Absolutely.
That would be awesome. That would be so awesome.
And I always say to people,
and super stressful, by the way. It would be.
Well, I can handle it. I'm a tough girl from New York, so yeah. And I always say to people like you who have me on their podcast, it's like, you know what? You're the people who I'm going to remember if anything takes off and come back on your show, maybe, known a little, because that is very special to me. I don't forget those people. I don't forget people like you and anybody who's had me on their podcast as a nobody. And if I become a somebody, I'm happy to come back on because I'll
Listen,
remember.
just give me one of those scenes.
All right, you want to be in
No,
it?
no,
I
no,
mean,
no. Let's not. We don't want to do.
you can be from another band because there are people that you know that she talks to from that I created.
Oh Lord, don't do that. Don't do that. Beth, thank you so much. And where specifically are you most interactive on social media so people can
I'm really on everything. My marketing person, I have an author page on Facebook, which I really let her handle it. I do Facebook. Um, I will say Threads
Oh, okay.
is very interesting. Sometimes the people on Instagram are, I do reels on TikTok. Like I have an author signing at the library here, but I'm down south and I was told that my book isn't family friendly, so we'll see how
Oh my God.
that
It's a
transpires.
library. Come on.
I know. Well, I'm
That's,
giving them a free book, so
it's not. Listen, they're supposed to take everything. You know this. Library is
yeah.
supposed to do that.
Listen, they're gonna get a copy of my book because that's the deal. So it'll be in that library. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh, Bev, I can't wait, and I'll keep in track. And anytime I see something, I'll try to share it. And see where it goes. Thank you so much for coming on and talk to us.
Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate it.